In this part of the course, we're going to talk about business objectives. In our last video, we talked about business opportunity and how that should come from the background. So everything is kind of building on each other in this vision and scope document. So you start with your background stating what the problem is that you're having, and then what the business opportunity is. And then the business objectives should be in support of both the background and the business opportunity. So we're going to take a look at some objectives, and then we're going to talk about which ones are in line with that and which ones are not. So our first business objective is design and build a mobile-first website which will consolidate 3 websites down to just one that marketing will use to promote and share with current and prospective customers. This is the first time that we are finding out how many websites we need to consolidate into one. So if you see in the background, it talks about the fact that existing customers must access a number of different websites, many of which are not mobile friendly. So to me, saying it in that way feels like more than 3. When we say many are not mobile friendly and a number of different websites, it feels like there's more than 3. And then our first business objective says, hey, we're going to consolidate 3 websites down to 1. So it kind of makes me go, oh, wait, this isn't as complicated as I originally thought it was. Now we're going to look at the second one, which is going to help kind of tie into that thought that I had on the first one about this doesn't seem like it's as bad as I thought since it says 3. But when we look at the business objective number 2, it says, institute a framework for a new website that will allow global regions to leverage the CMS capabilities and allow regions to either repurpose templates that our North America region has created or create their own templates within the global framework that allows them to customize as needed. So this tells me that there are maybe 3 websites for North America, but that we're also talking about global regions and their websites. And then that ties into the 4th business objective. So let's just go ahead and look at 3 and 4, and then we'll talk about kind of how they're all tying together and what additional information we might need. So 3 says, remove dependencies on the internal IT team who currently help to manage various pieces of today's active sites. So in our background, we had stated that we don't really have a tool that meets our needs, so publishing updates is cumbersome, and we're learning through the business objectives that we want to remove the IT team from being that middle person that has to help with making those updates. So when an update is needed to the website, the marketing team wants to be able to just make it themselves rather than having to get put into the schedule to get changes made by the IT team in between while they're working on all the other many projects that they're working on. So it makes sense to kind of remove that roadblock and allow them to have the power that they need in order to make the changes that they need made to the site. Our 4th objective says, launch the North America site first with the other regions to follow over time. So this ties back to number 2 that talks about the global regions also needing their websites updated, and that we want them to kind of repurpose and use the framework that we're going to have for North America. So one thing that I, as a BA, if I got these business objectives from the stakeholder who had completed this document, I would look at this and say, okay, so because we've got some business objectives here related to our other global regions right outside of North America, that probably should be mentioned in the background and the business opportunity, because remember, all of these things are supposed to tie together. So you could say in the business objectives, there's additional information here related to other regions that's not in the background or the business opportunity. But if that needs to happen, if those objectives are valid, then the change that needs to be made to the document is that additional information needs to be added to the background and the business opportunity. Now, if you watched the previous videos that we did on background and business opportunity, you'll remember that I talked about if you got an incomplete background from the stakeholder, then you would go back to them and basically elicit information and help them make that background statement more complete. So at the time that we did that, we didn't have the business objectives. So we didn't know at that point to ask them for more information related to the other regions. So this is a situation where once you have the business objectives, you may have to go back again to the stakeholder and say, hey, you know what? It looks like we might actually need to add a little bit more information to the background and maybe the business opportunity as well in order to support objective number 2 and objective number 4. So again, you want to make sure that all of these things are tying together and that they're building on each other so that you really and truly have a complete document that is supportive of the project as a whole. So again, you may have to go back. Even the business objectives may not be clear. We didn't really talk about that. We talked about the fact that you have some business objectives here that aren't supported in the background and business opportunity, but you may also have business objectives that just are not clear. So for example, with business objective 1, it may have said design and build a mobile first website which will consolidate other sites down to just one. So if it just said other sites, you wouldn't know how many were actually involved. So that would be something that should kind of jump out at you as something that's vague. Anytime you're reading any of the information related to what's here in the objectives or the opportunity background, really any section of the document where something isn't completely spelled out and it's vague, you should pick up on that and then go back to the stakeholder if they wrote it, or if you wrote the document, look at it from your own perspective too and say, you know what, I made this too vague. I need to spell this out better. So when you see things like we'll consolidate websites or things like additional information or anything that doesn't tell you exactly what it is, it just tells you that there's something, but not what that something is. That's when you know, wait a minute, this may be vague. I need to take another look at this. So keep that in mind when you're reading documentation that is being submitted to you by other team members.